nothing. What do you want me to do?
I think I just figured out how Daredevil Born Again might actually be the perfect setup for Spider-Man Brand New Day, at least according to a pretty convincing MCU theory. And that's not even the wildest part. The new title for Brand New Day might be hinting that it's taking a page from one surprising and kind of controversial Phase 3 movie. Plus, there's this theory floating around that Mephisto could finally show up and strike a deal with Peter Parker. It's getting that deep. So let's break down everything we know so far about the upcoming movie. Daredevil Born Again is doing more than just bringing Matt Murdock back into the spotlight. It might actually be setting the stage for Spider-Man's next MCU chapter. And not just any chapter. There's a growing theory that Born Again could directly lead into Spider-Man Brand New Day. Sounds like a stretch? Maybe not. When you look at the direction Born Again is heading and compare it to where Peter Parker left off in No Way Home, the pieces kinda start falling into place. Let's rewind a little. Matt Murdock's story is picking up post-Netflix's Daredevil, now fully part of the MCU. Meanwhile, Peter Parker? He swung off into total obscurity at the end of No Way Home. No friends, no family, and no one even remembers who he is thanks to Doctor Strange's spell. He's starting from scratch. And since both Daredevil and Spider-Man are based in New York City, it's not hard to imagine their paths crossing, especially when the laws that Daredevil's dealing with might also impact Peter. To understand where all this might be going, it helps to look at the comics. Brand New Day comes after the Civil War storyline, where Peter, siding with Tony Stark, publicly reveals he's Spider-Man. That choice backfires badly. Aunt May ends up shot, Peter's life falls apart, and he eventually makes a separate deal with Mephisto to save May's life. The cost? His marriage to MJ gets erased from reality, and everyone forgets he's Spider-Man. That reset brings us into Brand New Day, where Peter is basically trying to figure out how to be a hero in a world that doesn't trust him. Now, back in the comics, all of this happened under the Superhuman Registration Act. If you were a hero not working under the government's control, you were a criminal. So Peter was constantly being hunted, not just by villains, but also by the law and the public. And that really captures what Brand New Day was about, rebuilding yourself when the world has turned against you. In the MCU, that same kind of tension might be coming back, just with a twist. We know the Sokovia Accords were introduced during Captain America Civil War to regulate superpowered individuals. And while She-Hulk Attorney-at-Law revealed those were repealed, that doesn't mean heroes now have it easy. Far from it. Daredevil Born Again shows that things are still very complicated for vigilantes. Enter Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin. In Born Again, he's not just a crime boss anymore, he's the mayor of New York City, and he's using that position to go after vigilantes hard. By episode 7, he's formed a task force to crack down on anyone operating outside the law. He's painting them as threats to society, justifying aggressive legal action. Sound familiar? It's like a local version of the Superhuman Registration Act all over again, only this time hyper-focused on New York. And guess who that would impact? Yep, Daredevil and Spider-Man. If Matt Murdock ends up being hunted for being a masked hero, there's a good chance Peter's in the same boat. Considering that no one remembers who Peter is anymore, he's just another anonymous vigilante swinging through the city. That makes him the perfect target for Kingpin's new laws. It almost brings things full circle to J. Jonah Jameson's Spider-Man is a Menace shtick. What makes this even more interesting is that No Way Home already borrowed elements from the comics One More Day, the whole everyone forgets Peter is Spider-Man plotline. So if Born Again lays the groundwork with anti-vigilante legislation, it opens the door for Brand New Day to pick up the rest of the storyline. And it all fits, both geographically and thematically. Born Again and Brand New Day are both rooted in New York. Both focus on heroes fighting for their neighborhoods, despite laws and systems being stacked against them. If Born Again ends with vigilantes pushed into the shadows, Brand New Day could show us how Peter adapts to that environment. Even cooler, there's already a subtle link. In Born Again Episode 2, Kingpin casually mentions a man in a spider costume. Now he doesn't know Peter's identity, Doctor Strange's spell saw to that, but it shows Spider-Man's still active, and clearly still on Fisk's radar. Instead of doing another massive global-scale story like Civil War, Marvel seems to be leaning towards smaller, more grounded conflicts. That's actually smart. It allows them to tell personal, emotionally rich stories while also building up to the bigger stuff later. And let's be real, we've all been hoping for Kingpin to eventually go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man on the big screen. No Way Home left Peter in a great place for that, a street-level Spidey with no resources and everything to prove. The big question, though, is whether we'll actually see Daredevil and Spider-Man team up again. Sure, Matt helped Peter with legal advice in No Way Home, but thanks to Strange's spell, he doesn't remember Peter anymore. Still, even without that memory, their paths could totally cross again. They're both crime fighters, both operate in NYC, and they've worked together plenty of times in the comics. It's easy to imagine a scenario where Matt ends up defending Spider-Man in court, or better yet, fighting alongside him against Kingpin. Whether that happens depends a lot on scheduling. Charlie Cox is booked for several MCU projects, and Born Again already has a second season coming in 2026. That just so happens to align pretty perfectly with Brand New Day's expected release, so we might be looking at a full circle moment here. Bottom line, Daredevil Born Again, it might be quietly laying the foundation for Spider-Man's next big adventure. And not in some cosmic multiverse exploding way. This time, it could be gritty, grounded, and deeply personal, a return to the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man we've been missing. And speaking of Brand New Day, Marvel recently confirmed it as the official title of Tom Holland's next solo outing. That also signals the end of the Home trilogy, Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home, and the start of something new. While details are still under wraps, fans are buzzing, and there's an interesting twist. Brand New Day might take inspiration from a very unexpected MCU movie. Remember Ant-Man and the Wasp? That movie dropped shortly after Infinity War and acted like a breather between all the high-stakes chaos. It was light, local, and personal. Now, with Avengers Doomsday coming 2 months before Brand New Day, there's speculation that Spider-Man's next film could do the same thing. Give us something smaller scale amidst all the cosmic craziness. In fact, just like Ant-Man skipped Infinity War, it's possible Tom Holland's Spider-Man won't even appear in Doomsday. That might seem disappointing at first, but it would actually make the emotional ending of No Way Home hit even harder. If Peter is truly on his own, facing a hostile world with no Avengers by his side, it sets the stage for a deeply personal story. And let's not forget, Brand New Day in the comics wasn't just a reboot, it was a test. Peter was forced to grow, rebuild, and redefine what it meant to be Spider-Man without a safety net. That's what this next chapter in the MCU could offer. All signs point to a new era for Spidey, one that's street-level, emotional, and full of tough choices. If Marvel plays its cards right, Daredevil Born Again and Spider-Man Brand New Day could kick off a gritty, interconnected phase in the MCU where heroes aren't just battling supervillains, but the system itself. And that's a wrap for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.